Hi everyone, I wanted to give you some guidelines about the mock parent-teacher conference that's coming up. If you haven't yet signed up for a time slot in the Sign Up Genius link that I had sent, please be sure to do that as soon as possible. If you have a conflict with those two dates that I have provided on the sign-up sheet, please email me as soon as possible so we can arrange some alternative plan so that you're able to complete this assignment. So I just drafted up some more clarification for the conference just so you understand how you're going to be determining the information that you're sharing at the conference, the logistics of it, how it's going to flow, and then the reflection paper that you have to draft after the conference is over. So for the sake of this parent-teacher conference, again, this class is child, family, and community, and so we want you to have a chance to actually facilitate a parent-teacher conference. Again, it's not going to be a actual real-life situation, but it'll give you good practice, facilitating a conference, going over developmental information, speaking with a parent, even though I'll be the one playing the parent. It'll still kind of just put you in that position. Parent-teacher conferences can be very intimidating for teachers, and if you've never done one before, this is kind of a nice way to get your feet wet doing that in a situation that's not an actual parent of a student that you're teaching. And it's a way for me just to kind of see how you can handle yourself, how you communicate information, how you respond to questions about a child's development. And so it's a fun assignment. I had a lot of fun doing this. Last year was the first year that I did this with my students, and it was just a lot of fun. And I think the students enjoyed it as well, and really just some great experience came from it as well. So the first thing I just want to point out, where do I find a child to gather information on? Well, this, I'm giving you lots of different options. So again, these bullet points kind of give you some information on students that, some students that you could pick. For example, if you're teaching in a program, assistant teacher, an aide, a volunteer, you can pick a student in your class and use that information about their development. If you're a mom of a student that falls in that early childhood range, birth through third grade, you can use information on your child. If you're a nanny, you can use a child that you are nannying for if they fall within that range of birth through third grade. Or if you have close connections to someone, maybe you've got a really close friend, maybe you're an aunt, maybe you're a Sunday school worker at a church and you have a good relationship with a parent there. Use some information on a child there. So again, I'm hoping with all these options that everyone will have a place to find a child. If not, please contact me as soon as possible, and we'll try to figure out how you can have some information to talk about for your conference. Again, I'm going to be giving you, I'm going to be playing the part of the parent. And I'll talk in just a minute here about what kind of content you need to talk about. But I wanted to talk about this right here. So some of the information that you're going to communicate is probably going to be real true to life. Like, you're going to know about some of the developmental information. Some of the things I may ask you to talk about, maybe you don't quite know, depending on your relationship and how long you've had that relationship with the child. If it's just a casual relationship, like maybe you're the Sunday school teacher, or maybe it's a friend's child, or maybe it's your niece or nephew that you don't see all the time. Use as much real-life information that you can, because the more real-life that the information is, the more comfortable you're going to be communicating, because it's something that you're not making up, and it's something that you've had experience with. However, and also I want to say, if you need to, spend a bit of time observing that child to make sure that you do have a grasp on that child's development, at least parts of it. But again, some of the information you might be communicating might be fabricated, which means it might be made up. So again, if you don't have any examples of the child's fine motor development, or you don't have any concrete examples of the child's literacy or math development, then you might have to make that information up. Just make sure that that fabricated information is going to make sense with the age and typically developing milestones of the child that you are choosing to report on. So again, like if you're talking about a preschool child and you're using an example about literacy development, you're not going to talk about something that's for infants and toddlers. Like make sure that the information that you're communicating is going to follow suit with that age of the child. So I hope that makes sense. If that doesn't make any sense or you're unclear about that, kind of using that made up information and the real life information, then let me know and I can clarify that further. But again, just, it's going to be, like I said, it's a fictional situation. I want you to use a real life child just so that you can have that visualization of that child and think about that child's development and interactions and how that child is kind of from day to day or the times that you interact with that child. But again, if some of the information I'm asking you to speak to is not something that you've observed, then, use your experience of what you know about child development. Use your experience of what you know or you've observed from other classes and fill in the blanks. So again, if that doesn't make sense, please just let me know and I'm more than happy to talk through that with you guys a little bit further. Again, I'm going to be playing the part of the parent, so as you lead the conference, it'll be an improvisation for me. I'll just kind of let you lead. I'll listen to the information that you're giving me. I'll ask questions and make comments about that information that you're giving me, just to kind of see how you respond. Like you may talk about development or you may have a concern and I may, ask about that concern. Well, what are you guys doing? What are you doing about it? You may, and you can give me some examples of what you're doing about that concern, maybe even brainstorming some suggestions together. So again, have notes to talk about, but then again, some of the stuff that I'm going to be asking, it's not necessarily going to be in your notes. And so you're going to just kind of, again, taking your knowledge of child development, taking your knowledge of, early childhood and responding in the best way that you can. The only information that I'm going to need to know before we actually start the conference is the name, gender, and age of the child, and how long you've been that child's teacher. So it'll give me just a little bit of context. I'll know how old the child is, the gender, so when we start, then I'm not kind of left to be guessing with that information. The conference needs to be 10 minutes long. If it goes like a minute or two under or over, that's okay, but I don't want it to be like super short, like 3 to 5 minutes, and I don't want it to go like 15, 20 minutes. So keep it around 10 minutes. If it's 8 minutes, that's okay. Less than 8, I'm going to be a little bit concerned. I'll probably take off a little bit in the grading for that. And then if it goes over 15 minutes, then I'll probably start to count off. Try to keep what you need to talk about concise and within a 10-minute conference. So again, you might have to practice a little bit ahead of time. Maybe have someone like practice with you, just to kind of see if what all you need to talk about without the parent making comments back or asking questions back is going to fill that 10-minute time slot. So you're probably wondering, what is it that I need to report on? So here's what's going to happen. So first, you're going to welcome and introduce yourself to the parent, so that'll be me. You're then going to discuss the child's overall development using the guidelines provided, and here's the guidelines. So here's what you're going to share: the developmental information, cognitive development. So, for example, share some specific information about concepts such as their literacy and math development. Share skills that they've been learning in other content areas like science or social studies. And then also discuss how you're supporting their learning in this area. So talk about, if they're learning, when you're talking about their literacy skills, talk about types of activities that they're engaging in that's helping to support this. Talk about how you're coming alongside to support them. So again, talk about that within that. Same with fine and gross motor skills. Share information that helps the parent understand how they're developing their fine motor skills and how you're supporting that. Give a couple examples and do the same for gross motor skills. And then finally, the last developmental domain you're going to speak to is social and emotional development. So again, share information about their overall adjustment into the classroom, how they navigate the classroom, can they do that independently, do they need help, do they need redirection all the time, like talk about that. Who are their friends, how do they interact with other people, how do they interact with you as the teacher or the other teachers in the classroom, and then any other social and emotional information that you feel needs to be shared. Also share some of their favorite activities. Again, this can be linked into this part here. Like you can be, if some of their favorite activities are, artwork or creating art or painting, and you've talked about painting and how you're supporting their fine motor skills, then say that, like, this is how we're supporting their, this is how their fine motor skills are developing through painting. This is how we're supporting that. Painting is one of their favorite activities to do, so you can integrate their favorite activities into these 3 developmental domains as well. Same thing with any concerns. If you have any concerns about the child, integrate that in there too. If there's social emotional concerns, like if the child just can't navigate the classroom independently, if they're having a hard time trying to figure out where to go play each day, they're constantly, just wandering and they need redirection all the time. If there's concerns, then talk about those concerns. And then also when talking about those concerns, you're going to have to talk about, how you're working with those concerns. Don't just talk about the concerns and don't have any solutions or things that you're doing to work on helping them to move past those concerns. Also describe any brief goals that you've established to support the weaknesses and challenge, and also challenge the strengths of the child. Again, you can integrate this discussion in with each of those developmental domains. So within the developmental domains, you can talk about kind of the skills, how you're supporting, any favorites that might be in that area, and any concerns that you have. Within those concerns, what is your plan to help with those concerns? What is your plan to help further their strengths in that area? So you can kind of talk about each of those within each of these 3 developmental domains. Again, make sure that you allow the parents to ask questions and make comments. If the parent doesn't ask questions willingly, which I will, then ask them if they have any questions. You're going to lead the conference, but don't just talk nonstop. Like, don't just start and then boom, 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 everything in one thing, and then leave like 30 seconds at the end to be like, do you have any questions? Let it flow kind of naturally. Let the parent, have time to talk. The parent might want to give suggestions. Like you might have a concern about a child, like they are having a hard time adjusting to our classroom. They're crying a lot. Do you, the teacher might, you as the teacher might say, do you have any suggestions? Does the child have a favorite activity? How do you do this at home? So take advantage of that. And, let there be, that partnership there in the conference as well, even though you're going to be leading the conference. At the end of the conference, when you feel when you've covered all of the topics that you want to cover, and it's coming to that natural end, conclude the conference and just, thank the parent for coming, and then, tell them, goodbye. So again, that's how it's going to flow. I will be timing the conferences, and so don't get intimidated by that timer. We'll all kind of time, and then when it gets to be 10 minutes, it'll go off. If it goes off while you're talking, just ignore it. Just know that you need to start wrapping up the conference. If you don't happen to get through every single thing that you planned on talking about, then that's okay. If you felt that the conference was good with the content that you got out, and I was able to just kind of see how you responded to questions, don't get too hung up on this. I know the students are usually very nervous with this, but please stay relaxed. I think you'll see too, like my students last year, that you came in kind of intimidated and not really sure how it was going to flow, but it turned out to be to really be great, and felt like it was an actual real live conference. So again, if you have any questions about this, let me know. I would encourage you, since April 1st and 2nd are coming up here really quickly, I would encourage you to start looking at different students and figure out who you want to use for your conference. At the end of the conference, you are going to have to write a reflection paper about your experience. So these are the points that you are going to have to talk about. So that should be really simple. The paper should be really simple because it'll just be, reflecting on your experience and what you learned about it as well. So if you have any questions about anything, please don't hesitate to contact me, and I will be seeing you guys soon. Bye-bye.